Hey, you guys. I am Meredith Hawley. I'm a lawyer and life coach, and I help women shift power dynamics so that they can stop and prevent toxic work environments. And today I want to talk about the thing I'm most embarrassed about in my first book. I've been able to start working on my second book, and it's been very exciting, and I'm sending out some copies of my first book just as a New Year's gift to some people who haven't gotten it yet. And so I was really excited, and I was putting things together, and then I ran into somebody last week, and she didn't know about my first book. She was like so excited for me, and I didn't really know her that well last year, but we've sort of become friends over this year, and she's just someone I'm really impressed by and really admire, and who has been really instrumental in some important things that I feel like have happened this year for my clients. And so I was having this lovely conversation with her, and I was excited, and I was talking about my book, and I went home, and I was just going through my book. I don't even remember why, but getting a few ready to send and flipping through some chapters, and I came across this paragraph that recounted a conversation I had with this woman, and not in a kind way. And it recounted it basically, I don't think totally inaccurately, but it was not kind in the way I characterized her. And I immediately felt incredibly ashamed and humiliated that I had done this, and that I had described this person in a way that now I would not describe her. I just, I think the point I was making is fair in some instances and not necessarily fair as it applied to her. I made a point about how generationally we've taken gender discrimination differently, and how many women who I run into in a little bit of an older generation than me feel a lot of pressure to make men comfortable and to help men never experience feelings. And so they will maybe manage themselves or manage the way that they talk in order to prevent men from feeling feelings, because we've been raised that it's very dangerous for men to feel feelings, that we could be threatened, and we could even die, that men are predators. If they're angry, we could die. And so I've seen in older generations, women being in competition with other women in favor of men. And I used this person as an example, and I do not think that that was accurate. And so when I came to this paragraph again, I was so overcome with how unkind I felt it was to characterize this particular person in that way, and how unfair it was. And I feel like this was a really good example. And so I wanted to share it with you guys of how it is hard to talk about discrimination. It is hard to talk about harassment. It's hard to talk about how we wish people would behave versus how they do behave. And sometimes we do it wrong. In order to talk about it, in order to take risks about how we talk about it, sometimes we talk about it wrong. Sometimes we're in the wrong, even if our heart is in the right place, even if we want to do the right thing. And so in order to handle that, a lot of us stop talking about discrimination and harassment. We stop talking about how we want people to behave. We stop asking for change because we're afraid that we're going to talk about it wrong, or that somebody's feelings will be hurt. And so what I offer with that is that it is hard to be wrong. It's hard to see that you're wrong later and acknowledge it. And sometimes people will have hard feelings about that. And it can be really painful to let other people have painful feelings around something that we've said that now we would not say, even that we realized was wrong. And it's worth it, I think. If we're going to make change, if we're going to see the generations come after us in a different world than the world we live in now, we have to be willing to make mistakes and to say the wrong thing and to let other people correct us and to even feel shame. So the worst thing that's happened to me related to this experience is that I've felt the feeling of shame. And I know that I'm strong enough to feel the feeling of shame. And I know that on balance, the person who I felt like I was unkind to is strong enough to feel difficult feelings, and that I had to make those mistakes. If I could go back now, I would totally rewrite that section and I would not include it. I would use a different example, or I would just be kinder in the way that I characterized it. However, I have had women talk to me and tell me that me being willing to write that book and talk about this issue has changed the way they've been able to advocate for themselves. And so making those mistakes and talking and being wrong myself is still worth it to me to help the people that this could potentially help. If I can be the one who's wrong and who changes and who acknowledges that I say things the wrong way or that I regret them later, I'm totally willing to do that and to be the person who's wrong, in order to pave the way for how do we want to talk about this? How do we want to talk about each other? How do we want to talk about discrimination and harassment? How do we want our environments to look and to be more fair and to be more inclusive? Even today, I was talking to a client and this is like just another example of this. I'm having all this self-reflection this week. I was using the word, I described something as crazy, and I've been noticing myself use the word crazy or insane or these derogatory words that often are used against or to humiliate people with mental illnesses. And my definition of, I kind of follow Byron Katie's definition of crazy or insane or mentally ill, where it means that we're resisting reality. It means that our thinking is not in line with reality. And I think that most, if not all of us, experience that mental illness or crazy or insanity. But just because I have that definition that in my heart is kind, that is not how everyone's going to receive it. And so I'm trying to be conscious of how I talk about that and how I use that word, and not just flippantly throw it out, expecting other people to manage their feelings around it, but to be conscious of my words and my speech and how I talk about other people, how I talk about myself, and have a little bit more kindness. And I'm not there yet. And I say that word and it feels to me like it comes out of my mouth, and then I wish I could pull it back in and I can't. And so, to me, that doesn't mean I stop talking. It doesn't mean I stop trying. It doesn't mean I stop adjusting the way I talk about things to conform more with my values. It means I keep talking and I keep making mistakes. And it means that I learn to be willing to feel embarrassment and shame and even guilt and all the negative feelings that come up that lead to change, that like allow change. I let those feelings come up, and then I say, what do I want to do? How do I want to feel? What do I want to think about this that's going to actually lead to my speech being in line with my values and my beliefs, that my words will be kind and also brave, that they will be respectful, but they also will challenge people from a place of respect. So it's a work in progress. And I wanted to sort of call myself out on this because I think a lot of times people see advocates and people advocating for change in discrimination and harassment, and we start to feel like, oh, I can't participate in that because I don't know everything already. I don't know all the right things to say, and I need to know all the right things to say before I start participating. And I say participate now, offer your voice now, be willing to feel the difficult feelings of being wrong in order to contribute what you have to contribute to change. So that's sort of my story of being willing to feel shame and feeling regret about something that I said that I think is unkind, a few things that I've said that I think are unkind, in the work that I'm doing to change. If you want to share your process, I would love to hear it. If you have any questions about this, just send me a DM or make a comment if you want to, but don't feel like you have to share your own story. All right, thanks you guys. Thanks for making the world a better place and for saying hard things too.